Uthayan is a Tamil-language Sri Lankan daily newspaper published by New Uthayan Publication Limited, part of the Uthayan Group of Newspapers. It was founded in 1985 and is published from Jaffna. Its sister newspapers is the Colombo-based Sudar Oli.Uthayan was the only newspaper published from Jaffna which did not cease publication due to the civil war. The newspaper has been attacked several times. A number of its staff have been murdered by paramilitary groups and other forces, and it regularly receives threats. History. Uthayan was founded in 1985 by E. Sri with the first edition being published on the 27th of November 1985. At the time there were two other newspapers published from Jaffna, the Tamil-language Ila Murasu and Ila Nardu. Murasali began publishing from Jaffna in 1986. As the civil war escalated, newspapers published from Jaffna came under pressure from both government forces and the rebel militant groups. Ila Murasu and Ila Nardu were taken over by the rebel liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam in 1987 and 1994 respectively. In October 1995, as the Sri Lankan military launched a military offensive to recapture the Jaffna Peninsula from the LTTE, virtually the entire population of the Valakam region fled to other parts of the peninsula and the Vani. Uthayan staff fled from the Jaffna offices, taking printing machine, a generator and newsprint on a truck. They set up a temporary office in Sarasmalai, then Marachi, from where they published the paper until April 1996. Then the paper returned to Jaffna after the military had recaptured most of the peninsula including Jaffna city. By 1996 the Uthayan was the only newspaper published from Jaffna. Uthayan was shut down by the Sri Lankan government on the 19th of May 2000 using the recently passed draconian law, the Emergency Regulation No. 1 of 2000. The Sri Lanka army cut off the phone lines, locked the offices and took away the keys. The newspaper reopened 45 days later on the 4th of July 2000 after the government lifted its ban. Sub-editor N. Uthayan was interrogated by the police for 2 hours at his offices the 20th of January 2001 regarding an interview with Anton Balasingham, the LTTE's chief negotiator and political advisor. After the civil war resumed, the Sri Lankan military closed the A9 road, which was the main road link between the Jaffna Peninsula and the rest of the country. This resulted in an acute shortage of food, fuel, medicine and other supplies, including newsprint and printing ink, on the peninsula. Uthayan was forced to drastically cut its number of pages and the copies printed. It went from 20,000 copies of a 12-page paper to 7,500 copies of a 4-page paper. Editor N. Uthayan was arrested by the police without a warrant on the 26th of February 2009 as he attended a funeral in Mount Lavinia without a warrant and allegedly beaten in custody. As international criticism of the arrest intensified, the Sri Lankan government claimed Uthayan had been arrested in connections with the LTTE air raid on Colombo. Uthayan was released on the 24th of April 2009 after the Colombo Crimes Division informed the court that there was no evidence connecting him to the air raid. Uthayan alleged that he had been detained in order to prevent him highlighting the plight of the civilians in the Vani attacks. The Uthayan and its employees have been subject to numerous attacks during its existence. In 1987, the Sri Lankan security forces attacked the Navalla Road in Jaffna, where the Uthayan offices were located, using artillery. 2 Uthayan employees were injured and 40 others in the area were killed. In 1990, the Uthayan's officers were hit by an air raid, killing 1 employee and injuring 5. A journalist named Valupalai was attacked on 29 August 1998 at his home in Sembian Patu's Vadamarachchi. Thavashelvam had written a report critical of the local authority. The following year, 2 grenades were thrown into the newspaper's offices, exploding near the printing machines and injuring security guard S. Selvaraja. The Elam People's Democratic Party, a government-backed paramilitary group, was blamed for the attack. The Uthayan had recently criticized government-backed paramilitary groups. On 20 August 2005, 2 grenades were thrown into the advertising office of the Uthayan and Sudar Oli in Wellawata, but failed to explode. Suresh Kumar and Ranjit Kumar, 2 employees of the newspaper, were killed on 2 May 2006 when armed men burst into the newspaper's offices and opened fire indiscriminately. The attack followed the newspaper publishing a cartoon mocking Douglas Devananda, the leader of the EPDP. A delivery driver and an agent named Sathiv Bhaskaran was shot dead at the wheel of his delivery truck on 15 August 2006 at Pata Junction near Echuvali. Bhaskaran was shot in an area controlled by the Sri Lankan military. 3 days later, on 18 August 2006, a warehouse in Kope was burned down by armed men as a curfew was in place. According to a diplomatic cable leaked to WikiLeaks, Sri Lankan presidential advisor Basil Rajapakse had told the then-American ambassador Roberto Blake that the EPDP and the Sri Lankan Navy had perpetrated the arson. Armed men entered the Uthayan offices on 7 September 2006 and ordered staff to publish a statement urging Jaffna's students to call off the strike, threatening severe reprisals if the statement wasn't published. A few days later, on 10 September 2006, 2 armed men who entered into the Uthayan offices were arrested by the policemen who were guarding the building, but they were released within hours. Journalist Selvaraja Rajivanam, an Uthayan reporter for 6 months prior to his death, was shot dead in Jaffna close to a military checkpoint on 29 April 2007. The EPDP was blamed for Rajivanam's murder. A proofreader, Vadiveluni Malaraj, was abducted on 17 November 2007 near Jaffna as he returned home after work. A grenade was thrown into the newspaper's office in Jaffna on 24 March 2009, causing extensive damage and injuring a security guard. Same year, on 25 June, thousands of copies of the Uthayan, Thinak Ural and Valampuri were burnt in the street by armed men, after the papers had refused to print a statement against the LTTE. A staff correspondent of the newspaper, S. Kavitharan, was attacked by a group of men on 28 May 2011 as he cycled to work. Kavitharan had written articles critical of the security in Jaffna and the actions of government-backed paramilitary groups whose members had previously threatened Kavitharan. On 29 July, the same year, Uthayan's chief news editor Nana Sundaram Kuganathan was brutally attacked as he walked home from the office in Jaffna. The EPDP was blamed for the attack. Between 2006 and 2010, Kuganathan lived in the Uthayan offices out of fear for his life but had recently moved back to his family home after assurances were given by the government. Nagesh Prathipan and 2 other Uthayan distributors were attacked and newspapers torched by 4 men on 2 motorbikes on 10 January 2013 as they were distributing them in the Valvatithrai area. The paper's office in Kilinochchi were attacked by a group of 6 masked Sinhala-speaking men on 3 April 2013. 5 employees were injured, 2 seriously, and equipment and vehicles damaged. The newspaper blamed the security forces for the attack. The attack came after the paper published a series of articles highlighting seizure of Tamil-owned land by the army. 10 days later, on 13 April 2013, 3 men came to the paper's office in Jaffna and threatened security guards before damaging equipment and setting the printing press ablaze. Commentary on attacks by notable media personalities, entities committed to protect journalists. These attacks on the offices of Uthayan have been going on for years and typify the threats faced by the Tamil press in Sri Lanka, said CPJ Asia Program Coordinator Bob.Its. Reporters Without Borders. At least 5 of its employees have been killed this year, 2 of them in an attack on the newspaper on the eve of World Press Freedom Day. The press that prints the Colombo edition was the target of an arson attack in September. In Jaffna, the newspaper has twice been forced to publish communiques at gunpoint. RSF said. United States Department of State. As we continue our Free the Press campaign, we will highlight the case of Uthayan, a Tamil-language newspaper in Sri Lanka. Uthayan has seen its personnel beaten, its newspaper shipments burned, its equipment destroyed and its office set ablaze in the past month alone. The assault on a free press in Sri Lanka extends beyond Uthayan. Speaking at the U.S. State Department's daily press briefing in Washington, the department's acting deputy spokesperson, Patrick Ventrell, expressed, Human Rights Watch. The Rajapaksa government has a long history of media harassment and attacks on journalists critical of the government, Human Rights Watch said. Publications including electronic media that oppose government policies have been subject to censorship, and some have been forced to close down. The leading Tamil opposition newspaper, Uthayan, has faced repeated physical attacks against its journalists and property. International Federation of Journalists. The International Federation of Journalists joins partners and affiliates in Sri Lanka in unequivocally condemning the repeated targeting of the Tamil newspaper Uthayan. The effort to silence Uthayan after the country's long civil war was formally declared over in May 2009, is seen as a direct attack on post-war democracy and media freedom in the country, aimed at suppressing the dissemination of important information and diverse views among the public. The Wall Street Journal. The newspaper has supported self-rule for Tamils and its staff has repeatedly faced threats and violence, the most serious in 2006 when gunmen stormed its offices and killed 2 staffers. The Globe and Mail. I also saw the bullet holes above the sofa in the office of the editor of a Tamil-language newspaper in Jaffna. Days after we visited the paper, its offices were trashed and employees beaten. Hugh Siegel. Awards and recognition. The Uthayan was nominated in the media category in the 15th Reporters Without Borders Fondation de France Prize. It was awarded by the prize in 2013. The Uthayan received the Public Service and Tolerance Journalism Award at a ceremony at Gallface Hotel on 24 October 2008 organized by 6 Sri Lankan Journalists Associations. The chief editor and staff of Uthayan won the Seprala Gunasena Award for Defending Press Freedom in Sri Lanka Award at the Journalism Awards for Excellence 2008 held at Mount Lavinia Hotel. fell on 14 July 2009. In its August 2007 report, the International Press Freedom Mission to Sri Lanka describes the Uthayan as a heroic paper. It goes on to say, this newspaper, Jaffna's most popular Tamil daily, has paid a heavy price for doing its job since it was founded in November 1985. Its offices were bombed by the Indian Army in the 1980s and then by Sri Lankan warplanes in 1990. Its staff have been threatened by several Tamil armed groups, including the EPRLF and the EPDP, that have been fighting in Jaffna for the past 20 years, and in 1999 paramilitaries threw a grenade into its offices.